What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to try to find 100% ROI book flips, and this is going to be Amazon to Amazon book flips. So we're going to look and search for books on Amazon that potentially we can double our money on. Now, this is again going to be about 100% ROI. It's not necessarily about a profit goal. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you were to buy a book for $10 and to get 100% ROI, you would need to make your $10 back plus another $10 profit. And so that's the goal here. One thing you should know about only focusing on ROI is that as the purchase price of the book gets higher and higher, it becomes more and more difficult to get 100% ROI. And so it's maybe not always a good thing to be thinking about just ROI. Maybe a better metric is to think about profit per book. But a lot of people really love this 100% ROI. So obviously, it's going to be really easy or much easier to find those with cheaper books. But with that said, let's get right into it. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to start off on BookMine Mini, see if we can't find anything on BookMine Mini that could potentially give us 100% ROI. And then we will go over to um, regular BookMine and see if we can't find anything there. So yeah, let's get right into it. I'll share my screen. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to put those in the chat, and I'll do my best to go ahead and answer those when the time comes. Okay, so we're going to be going through we'll just go through every book on BookMine Mini, and then we'll just see if there's anything here that we could potentially get 100% ROI on. So this is the Minister's MBA. It's currently priced here at about $10. And if we look at some sales in July and August, you can actually see at the lowest price, multiple sales in the 40 range, maybe potentially one sell in the 90s there, some sales in the 40s, really sold quite well in March. I'm not sure if this is a seasonal book. It could be a seasonal book, but you can see how the offer count took a massive dip there in March, and then the used price went up. You can even see that there's a bunch of sales rank drops clustered right around the same time. So all the data makes sense, right? Became more popular. Offer count went down to 0. Used price went up. So if we look at this book, you can kind of see every year it does have this same sort of pattern, although it doesn't always appear to look like it happens during the same time. So it looks kind of like a seasonal book. Right now, again, it's priced here at about $9. And let's look at what BookMine Mini says. It's actually $14.50. So if you were to sell it at this price in the 40s, you'd be very close to 100% ROI. If you were able to sell it up there 80 or 90, definitely. One thing that I'll say about this is you could probably pick it up much cheaper. And so I would actually track this book. I do think that this could be a 100% ROI book, but I personally want to buy it right now just because I think it will become cheaper. And if you can pick it up for cheaper, you don't have to sell for as much. Like I would say the target price is probably like 35 to 37 is what I'd be trying to pick it up for. So if I can pick it up for like $8 and sell for 35, then you're totally looking at 100% ROI. So what I would do this book is just track it because its price over the next couple months will probably come down. So up here on Keepa, you could just click on the track product button, and then you could say, hey, notify me if this becomes $8 or less, include shipping costs. You can track that book, and I would say picking up 1 or 2 copies of that might not be bad. So a book that we have a lead on in the future. Next book came up with Cages, currently priced at $16, and you can see that the most recent sales were in the 30s and the 40s. A couple up there in the 50s. So if you could sell it up there in the mid 40s up to the 50s, then definitely I would say it's a 100% ROI book. I mean, this Keepa graph looks amazing. And so you can see $14.97 is what you could pick the book up at. And again, I'd say the target price, if you just look at the last couple years, I'd say $50 is a pretty realistic selling price at the lowest price. So what would this be? $14.98. And then I would say $49.99. There you go. I mean, close, almost 100% ROI. Closer, you'd have to sell for a little bit more, but that's kind of what I would target at. More of a slower seller. Doesn't sell a ton, but it definitely does sell. And you do notice that the used price kind of has been continuing to go down. There's a couple of larger bulk sellers like Books from California, Goodwill, and so these 3 copies could continue to go down in price. So again, this could be a book that you track. If it gets a couple bucks cheaper, I would definitely pop on it. Like if this gets to $12 or less, I would 100% be on that because at $12, now you don't have to sell for for 50. You can sell for 45, and it could be great. So remember that a lot of these books are going to be profitable at the right purchase price. We have Arabian Sands. So this book currently is about $8, and let me get rid of the buy box here on this one. It's currently about $8. The most recent sales were in the 40s. So I mean, this actually has sold for at least $40. Now, when you kind of collectively look at the data as a whole, it looks like there are plenty of times where you could pick this book up for a similar purchase price. So even though if you had this in inventory, you could have sold it for 100% ROI, I would say that's not something that's going to happen consistently. So I wouldn't buy that. This came up as a 9 on BookMine Mini. And again, remember, BookMine Mini is absolutely free. So you guys can get BookMine Mini for free. Just go to bookmine.co and you just get basically 600 book leads every day for free, 50 book leads every 2 hours. And that's what we're looking after, what we're looking off of. This is a 2 volume set. It's about $100. Here's what I mean, though. I think there is a decent amount of potential profit in this book, but not 100% ROI just because the purchase price is so high. But this has sold for at least $200 up to the new price of $240. It is a 2 volume set, so you want to be careful about that. But yeah, this isn't going to be 100% ROI. But if you were to buy for 98, assuming you do get both volumes and sell it for maybe 170 to 190, you're probably looking at between $30 to $50 profit. So not a bad book, just not 100% ROI. Fine Lines here is about, with all in shipping, $15.92. Most of these sales are happening right around the $40 range. Yeah, $40 at the lowest price. So 14 into 42 is not quite going to be 100% ROI, but again, definitely an undervalued book. All right, let's look at this one. This one. Yeah. So I'm kind of just looking at all the ones on BookMine Mini. Any comments? Blaine says, "Good to see you, Joji. It's been a while. Love 100% ROI book flips." Yeah, Blaine, it's been a long time, man. Hopefully things are going well with you. Hopefully selling is treating you well. All right, we have Organizational Behavior Updated 8th edition. So we have this currently at, I want to say, $19.98 free shipping, which is great. And if you look at this book, it was selling in the 60 range. So that definitely would have been 100% ROI in September. January was kind of sold right around the $50 range. So I would say a very undervalued book. Again, it's going to be close as to whether or not this is going to be 100% ROI. It really would come down to maybe exploiting that prime bump a little bit. I would say realistically, I would shoot for about $50. And I know we see $45 as the new price right now, but remember that the new price can always change. Like, for example, you see how the new price is 45 right now. Last year, this time it was actually 45 as well. And then when January came around, it all of a sudden was 65 and 65, 59. So that's what I mean is that new prices can always change, right? Just like used booksellers, new booksellers also will change their price relative to what type or when the season is. So 1998, I would say personally, I would target like $50. So this is going to be close. I don't think quite there. Yeah, so it's actually going to be a 48% ROI. So not quite there, but again, a profitable book. I would definitely buy that, but again, not 100% ROI. The Harvest Handbook of Apologetics. So this is sitting here at $10. It looks like it has sold in the mid 30 range. So this one could be close as well. It also has sold in the lower 20s. So I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a book that absolutely is going to sell for 100% ROI. It's just that a book that has sold at 100% ROI at the pickup price, which is $13.64, which it looks like that's actually no longer even available. So you'd have to sell us for probably around like 38 in order to get that 100% ROI. All right, Designing Virtual Worlds. So this book currently is sitting here at about $13. Looks like the most recent sales in the 60s, although most sales happen in the $30 to $40 range. So again, a book that is getting close to that, but not quite. All right, let's keep opening it up. New books. Just kind of open it up 3 at a time. And just going from there. All right. So the 39 Clues. This is currently at $349. Some recent sales in the 15s. But yeah, what's kind of thrown this book off is the use price was quite high with the cluster of sales range drops. So our software thought that this was potentially selling in the $50 range, but you can tell once you have an understanding keep it that that's not true. And that's why you do need that last human element, right? BookMine's going to give you a bunch of great leads. You're still going to want to go through them, right, to confirm whether or not you want to buy them. Unseen Guide for Crisis Negotiations. This is about $3. Most of the sales at the lowest price have been happening in the $20 range. So again, not going to be a quite 100% ROI book flip. The Last Witch of Scotland, about $14. Again, you have kind of sales all over the place on the low end in the 15, on the high end in the 30s. Again, just not a consistent seller where that's going to be 100% ROI. All right, let's keep it rolling. Yeah, I'm just gonna open everything on BookMine Mini here. We're almost through the first page here, so let's keep it rolling. Now, as you become more efficient at reading keeper graphs, you won't necessarily need to open every one. I would say in the beginning, if you're just starting out with online book arbitrage, it's a good idea to get the repetition in. But there'll be a time where you can kind of just scroll through most of the books and go, okay, I want to look at this one. I want to look at this one, etc. American Democracy, the AP edition. There's more than likely a newer edition of this available, but you can see that it does definitely show that high school pattern of doing incredibly well, which also happened here in August, September, where it was selling in the basically the $50 range, and the last few sales were up there in the 80s. And I know a lot of people are going to think that this was potentially an IP claim where the offer count went from 26 to 9. Given the fact that it's right dead smack in the middle of the actual season, and we've seen that before, it's more than likely an either a textbook wholesaler purchasing a bunch of copies for a specific college campus. It could be a college camp or a high school campus, excuse me, or it could just be a high school buying a bunch of copies and essentially buying the whole market out, which you can see happen the year prior, right? The sales rank was 1.7 million, then went down to 120,000, and the offer count went from 30 to 2. So what I really like about this book is there is a pattern in August where it looks like you have a major player come and just buy out all the copies. So that's why I would definitely want to have at least a couple of copies there available. Now, the good news is that you may not necessarily need to buy this right now. You could potentially pick it up in February, March, or April, maybe even in June. So you could wait a little bit on it to kind of see how the offer count is. But yeah, I mean, at $20, I would be targeting like 50 to 60 on this. So that would be close again to 100% ROI. Mineralogy and optical mineralogy. So this is at 40. The most recent sales were in the 80s, but you could have picked this up for right around 25 to $30 in the past. So interestingly, a seasonal book. Wow, this is a crazy seasonal book. That's amazing. Look at this. It's amazing. Mineralogy and optical. I guess it potentially is a college. It must be a college textbook. But you can see every August the used price just pops like crazy. So you can see that reflected also in the used offer count, where the used offer count always is going down in basically July, August. So 100% a book that you're going to want to have in your inventory. Again, right now, I would say it's close to, I don't know, right? It's $40. You know that it's not going to pop until next August, September. So I probably would just wait to kind of see what happens over the next 6 to 9 months. And if you can pick it up right around like the $20 range, I think it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute home run. So this is what I would consider definitely 100% ROI book flip when kind of time does this thing and we get back to the beginning part of the year on the calendar. So I would definitely track this book with the target of selling it for probably right around like 80 bucks, $85 probably. That's what I would target. So for us to get 100% ROI, we're going to probably need to pick it up for less than 30, so like 29. Yeah, so I'm going to come over here, track this product for 29 bucks and include shipping costs. So whenever I can pick this book up for 29, I'm going to be picking up copies just because it's for basically over a decade, performed extremely well. So that's an amazing book right there. That's awesome. Um, I would also be, if you are able to pick up copies on Amazon, I would also periodically be looking on eBay as well because you will have the Amazon invoice. But that's an amazing book right there. So um, awesome find on BookMine Mini. The short stories of Liam O'Flaherty. So a book that again has sold for up, potentially there for 40 and up there for 80, but most of the sales are much lower than that. And for that reason, we're gonna go and pass on it. All right, let's keep scrolling. Oh wait, there's one more. Wait, there's one more here. So we look at this one, this one. Okay, let's keep it rolling. Series of unfortunate events. Understand this is a 4-volume set, so you would need all 4 volumes in order to wanna buy this, but it is currently at 22 bucks. It's gonna be more than likely fairly heavy because it's a 4-volume set, so it's even if you were to sell this at basically 55 to 60 bucks, picking it up for 22 plus shipping, more than likely not going to be 100% ROI, probably close to like 70% ROI. But let's go ahead and see what we got here. Uh, 4 hardcovers. This is what you're wanting to see is like the 4 good hardcovers. But you can see that clearly this person doesn't say whether or not it does come with that or not. There could definitely be a play potentially picking up those books individually and then selling them together, but we're gonna go ahead and move on. A concise introduction to linguistics. So this was selling in the 50 range. It's now 22. January's coming up. It was also selling in the 50s. You can see that we have a very similar offer count, right around 17. Last year, we're at around 15. So more than likely, we're going to have a similar January season coming in. What might scare a little bit of what one thing to look at is the August season wasn't very strong. So I would go back to the previous August season and see if that season was also strong or not strong. It looks like it was similar to this August season. So maybe a little bit less strong. But I would still think that more than likely this is going to sell in that range. Now, for a book like this, more than likely there's a new edition. And it looks like that new edition has just come out. Actually, it's been out for a while. The edition that we're looking at right now came out in 2018. This edition, the newest edition, came out in 2022. Yeah, so the newer edition's been out for a long time. It's already been out for a couple years. So I would say that this other book is still good, still good to go. Probably not going to get that 100% ROI unless you exploit the prime bump a little bit because you could pick it up for $22.91. I would say it's close because you'd be selling. I would target like 55, so it's like a 50% ROI. Now you do see that the used buy box price was up there in the 90s, and with the number of sales there, more than likely those FBA sellers did probably get prices at that point, but what I'm trying to do in my estimation is be more conservative off of the lowest use price, which is, these prices rather than the prime bump. Because although in normal times you can usually get the prime bump, it's just not really a sound business model. So again, a book that I would pick up, but not 100% ROI at the lowest use price. But again, if you did buy this book, a high likelihood that if the FBA buy box is working how it normally does, a pretty high chance that you could get 100% ROI on that book. Okay, biology concepts, a book that does really well in August. You can see that the last 2-3 years. So again, what I would say is this is a book that you'd want to pick up at a much cheaper price. So I would track it because the first half of the copies were selling for about $5, $10. The last half were selling for about 50. So what I would do is track this book for like $7 and then try to flip this for like 29 to 35 bucks, potentially sell for more. So again, $3.63 plus shipping. So I'd say like $8. Maybe like 8.50. Whenever it's less than 8.50, then let me know. So you can see a lot of this is setting yourself up in the future, especially with the seasonal books. And that's one of the great things about BookMine Mini and BookMine in general is that we're going to find a ton of seasonal books for you that may be difficult for you to find. And again, I said 8.50 would be the target price. And in August, September, when you do have that mountain where the lowest use price gets much higher, I would be again targeting like $29.99 to like 39 or maybe like 37.99, somewhere in there. And for a book like this, you can see last year or actually this August, it got down to an offer count of 1. So everybody on the listing sold their copy. Same thing in the previous year, everyone sold their copy. You had, 27 people who had a copy. By the end of September, you had 0 people on the listing. So a good book there, just you aren't going to buy it right now. You'd probably wait to buy it. Birds, Requiem for the Timeless, Volume 2. This is currently sitting here at about $8, and most of the sales have happened in the 30s. So whether or not this will be 100% ROI comes down to if the $8 is with shipping or not, which it is $8 plus shipping. So more than likely not going to be 100% ROI book flip. Although it probably will be close because you'd be at $11.99, and I would say the target price on this would be like $35. Yeah, so you'd be at 35% ROI. So not quite there. But again, remember that all these books I'm showing you, these are not necessarily bad books, right? We're just looking for books that we could potentially get 100% ROI or more on. All right, let's keep it rolling. Explorations in basic biology, essentials of biology, statistics book. All right. So explorations in basic biology. This is currently sitting here at $6. The most recent sales were well over $100. You can see there's a little bit of a January season where the later tail end of the season was selling in the 38 range. So if you look at this particular book, yeah, it very clearly has that seasonal pattern of selling in both January and August. Now, the offer count last year, this time was 28. This time it is 14. So what I would say is you have a really good chance of selling this for 100% ROI plus or 100% ROI or higher in January because the offer count is much lower. And it just recently was selling at $100 when the offer count was quite low. So it's a little bit more expensive than what you could have bought it for last November, December. But again, that's because there was way more offers on the listing and you're still able to pick this book up for 12. So what I would do with this is so you can see how quickly it goes from 12 all the way up to 62. This prime seller at 14, they're going to sell out really quick. These two people are going to sell out. So what I would do is I would buy both of these used copies at $12. And then what I would put mine up at is not $68 probably. I mean, I'd probably maybe put one at like 45 and one at like 55, something like that, because you do want to sell it. But you're looking at 848 plus 398. So you're looking at 1246. And I would say probably targeting like 39.99. That's close to that 100% ROI. And then maybe the second copy at either 49.99 or even 59.99. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody says, I bought this book, Joji. I was actually able to sell both copies for 60, 70, 80, maybe even up to $100, just due to the fact that this book is in pretty low supply and, it's a college textbook. And so you could potentially get a pretty high margin on this. But again, to be conservative, I would target like $39.99, somewhere around there. But yeah, I would definitely buy both those copies. Definitely buy both those copies. Okay, essentials of biological anthropology. What's making this keeper graph hard to read is in January, the used price got up to about $3,000. And so that's kind of crunching the graph in a way that makes it hard to read. So we're at $30 right now. The most recent sales were in the 60s and 80s, a couple in the 90s in June. And then when you look at January of last year, you did have some sales as high as 130 and the 68 to 130. So again, a book that just doesn't have a ton of demand, but also doesn't have a ton of used offers. So picking up for 30, I would say probably targeting 75 to 80 would be a good idea. Again, if you pick it up for 34, sell for 75, you're not looking at 100% ROI, but so a good book, just probably not 100% ROI book. All right. We've got ourselves Statistics 11th edition. So this definitely looks to have a good shot at 100% ROI. It's sitting there at 23 plus shipping, which is probably what, $27 all in? Yeah, 27 all in shipping. It was just recently selling in the beginning of June for right around $80. Then in July, selling for about 80, selling for about 50 in September. And last December and January, selling right around $100. When you kind of look at its longer history, it is again one of these books that since Amazon's gone out of stock, just haven't had a ton of demand, but also hasn't had a ton of supply. So I would say the goal here would be to buy this for 27. Again, we're going into the season at a similar offer count. I would more than likely be trying to sell this for like 70 to $90. And it would be dependent on how many FBA offers there are. And let's see what we got. So 48, there's one person at 48, and then it goes up to 130. So I think that's definitely too high to be shooting for. But again, you can see how quickly this used price moves up with not that many sales, right? And you can see in January how, there were 9, 10 offers on the listing and just shot right down to 1. So, I mean, this is one of those books that Kiba doesn't track very well. It's not a book that sells a ton. therefore it's just harder for Keeper to track it. But a lot of people also worry about, hey, if I buy this book now, how do I know it's going to go back up? I mean, that just happened in June and went down to $23, actually the same price, and then immediately went right back in price and sold in the 80s. So for me, what I would do is I would purchase this at 23.65 plus 3.99, and I'd probably just buy a single copy of it. And I would probably target something like 79.99, something like that. Potentially, you could sell it for more, but again, I'm happy to sell the book to move on, make money, and go to the next flip. That makes sense. All right, let's see. Again, if you have any comments or any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section below. Happy to help out if I can. All right, let's look at this book. This book again. We're just looking at every single book that is showing up on BookMine Mini, just to see what potential deals are out there. We've already found a couple that I think have a decent shot there, 100% ROI. We found a ton of books that I think are going to be between 30 to 70% ROI. Okay, Saints Alive. This is currently sitting here at $10. It was selling in the 25 range. It looks like the highest it's kind of ever sold at. But yeah, definitely a book that if you were, definitely a great book to pick up if you were able to pick it up for a couple of bucks, like at a thrift store. An awesome book, but not going to be flippable for 100% ROI. This book here, again, is priced pretty cheaply, but most of the sales have been happening in like the $15 range. So for that reason, we're going to click out of that. A Hotel Man, Behind the Elegance. Currently priced about $3. Looks like the most recent sales at 27, and then the sales before that were at 75, and then some at 15. So kind of an anomaly selling there at the 75 price. What's interesting is when you go further back into time, you do have a more of a consistent selling price in the mid 30 range, which makes this seem like a much better deal to pick it up for $3. At the same time, we do appear to have quite a long time of this book being pretty cheap without it selling. So it's a book that I wouldn't be surprised if you sold it for 100% ROI, but there's just better books, and so I would pass on it. Okay, Oxford English Dictionary. The most recent sales have been happening right around $50. Multiple sales in the mid 40s up to the 50s. When you look at this book long term, I would say its intrinsic value is around that $30 to $50 mark, and you can currently pick it up for about 20. So it's definitely undervalued. Again, unless you sell it at the exploit the buy box a little bit, you're not going to get 100% ROI, but you likely will get a nice like 30 to 50% because you'd be buying this for $23.80, and at the lowest price, $49.99, you're looking at like a 30% ROI. So again, potentially you can exploit the buy box a little bit and get a little bit more than that. I would also say there have been periods of time where it's been cheaper, and so tracking this book for, let's say, 15 would be a huge pickup if you can pick these up for under 15. So I would track it for 15 because at 15, now all of a sudden you are looking at 100% ROI. So again, another great lead there in the future. All right, let's look at this American government book. We'll look at this real estate book, and we'll look at principal book here. All right, let's keep it rolling. American government. All right, let me move this. It looks like we have the screen is vertical. Whoa. Let's see. How can I do this? Vertical screen makes it so. Let's see. If I do it like hide vertical. If I do it like this, is this better? Let me know in the comments if this is better. Sorry, everyone. I thought I was seeing the comments here, but for some reason the comments weren't showing up. And maybe it's because I'm only looking at one account. That's probably why. But let me know, everyone, if this is better. I think this is probably better. Jan says, hey, how's it going? How's it going, Jan? Hopefully you're doing well. I think this is probably going to be better. All right. So we have American government in Christian perspective here. And currently this is priced right around $26. Most of the sales have been in the $40 range. What's really fascinating about this particular book is the fact that It had an off count of 12 going into the textbook season, and then had an off count of 1, and the price dropped to 199. So after these were selling the 30 range and then selling for 65, there's one person left trying to sell for 199, which obviously they didn't sell for. They stayed on the listing there. But there definitely was an opportunity for you to sell it for probably 60 to 70 to 80 bucks, somewhere in that range. Um, this book is currently at a pretty low offer count right now. You could kind of continue to monitor it, but my goal for a book like this would be to sell it probably right around 60 to 70 bucks. So again, buying it for 28, selling for 60 to 70, you're probably looking at like a 35 to like 50% ROI. So again, definitely profit to be made there, but more than likely just not 100% ROI. Let's see, is this better? No, still pretty small. Hasn't changed anything. Why is that? Maybe it's this. Maybe this will be better. There we go. I think that's gonna be better. Let me see on my end. Hopefully that's better. All right. Principles of California Real Estate. You've had sales in the $75 range and basically just go right out of stock. You've had sales probably much higher than that in the $80 range. And this is currently sitting here at 30 bucks. So the only thing to really worry about real estate edition books like this is just to make sure that they that there isn't a new edition available. So still pretty small. I'm thinking that this is probably better. Hopefully it is, but maybe it isn't. I don't know. All right. Yeah, Principles of California Real Estate. This is really interesting as well as you have a 2 used buy block set up right here. One which appears to be FBM. No, it is FBA. They're both FBA. There's only 2 offers available actually. So you have one at 29 and you have the other person at 190. I think 190 is definitely way too high. I think 75 is definitely very realistic on this book. So this actually looks great. You can pick this up for $29.99 from an FBA seller, and I would be targeting like 75 bucks. And so there you go, 73% ROI. Again, there's I think a lot of potential for you to sell it for even more than that, maybe up to 85 bucks, in which case that would be 100% ROI. But I would say that's definitely a good pickup right there. I don't think shooting for 190 is a very smart thing to do. It just doesn't appear to have ever sold for that much. But I would say 75 to 90 is probably a good pickup price. So that's a good book right there. Principles of California Real Estate. Great. All right. Let's continue to go through here. The principle, 3 keys to maximizing impact. This book is currently at about 10 bucks. It's had some sales this year in the mid 30 range. And yeah, I mean, pretty consistently a book worth right around 20 to 35 bucks. Offer count's a little bit higher than normal, which is why these prices down. Uh, yeah, and I would say targeting 35 bucks on this is definitely not bad. So if you were to target 35 and pick it up for 10, you're looking close to that 100% ROI. I would say actually you probably are at 100% ROI as long as this isn't a really heavy book, which it's a paperback, so I doubt that it is. So you're looking at 919, and I would target 34.99. So I'm thinking, yep, 130% ROI. So this is a book that I would buy, and just price it at 35 bucks and just wait and be patient. So this is called the Principle: 3 keys to maximizing impact. So hopefully that looks good there. All right, let's keep moving down. Got 3 more books here. I wanted to show this book because a lot of people could potentially get hurt with a book like this. 14 bucks is what you can buy it for. The most recent 4 sales have been 12 and then 120, 50, and 50. So a lot of people might go, oh, well, it's sold for 50 and 120. Yeah, but you have to look at the book's entire historical data. For the most part of its career, it's been a $5, $10 book. So even though you might have had some fluke sales at a high price, hence why BookMine found it, it's like, hey, it's 12 bucks. It was selling for 50 or more. It's a book that, again, this is where you need the human to come in and go, okay, no, that's not a book that I want to buy. The Eyes of the Skin. This is currently sitting on Amazon for about 17. Most recent sales appear to be in the $40 range at the lowest used price. Again, looking at the book holistically, it's appears to be more of like a $20 to $30 value book. So we're looking at it being a little bit undervalued. Yeah, I would say 30. I'd say $30 is a pretty fair estimate of what it's worth at the lowest price. What I will say that makes this very enticing to want to buy is when you look at the used offer count over time, right? You can see that in the last half, it's been much lower and it's actually sitting at pretty much almost its lowest offer count ever. So what that tells me is there's a lot of potential for this book to sell for more than, what its normal $30 price point is, which is why you see, selling prices in the $40 range as of recent. So again, a book that you can pick up for 17, I would target like 39.99 to 42, maybe somewhere in there. Not going to be 100% ROI, but definitely a profitable book. Mental Game of Tennis sitting at about $8 with shipping included. Most of the sales happen right around that range, so we're gonna move on. All right, let's keep it going. Murder Stone. All right, we're probably just gonna finish the rest of this page, and then we're probably gonna head on out. But again, BookMine Mini, 100% free, 50 book leads every 2 hours, 600 book leads every single day. So it's a no-brainer. It's absolutely free. Sign up for it. You got programming, 32-bit. It's at $8. Most recent sales were in the 30 range. Again, you want to look at the book holistically over the last year. It's been selling for at a price right around where it's at today, and so we don't want to buy that book. We have You Can Heal Your Second Life, sitting at about 12 plus shipping. Most of the recent sales have been right around $35. So again, a book that would be profitable, but not 100% ROI, because if you pick this up for about, if it is $12, let's see, it's 12.20 all in shipping. And you would sell this for right around like $35, you're going to be probably like a 70% ROI is what I'm thinking. It's more than likely a book that's pretty light, so it's not going to have tons of fees on the shipping. I'd say like $33. Yeah, you're looking at about a 50% ROI. So again, we're looking at profit here. I mean, we're looking at great books, but not 100% ROI books. The Murder Stone, this is at about $11. The most recent sales have been in the 30s. The $40, like 30 to 40 is what I'd say the intrinsic value of this book is, at least over the last 2 years. It's kind of weird when you go back before that. It doesn't appear to really have been a strong book. But for whatever reason, more recently in the last 2 years, it has done pretty decently in that $30 range. So again, another book that's probably going to be close to 50% ROI. So we'll pass. Lost on the Freedom Trail. This is sitting at $8. It depends on if this is $8 all in. No, it's actually $11.63. You'd want to sell this under Amazon's price, so probably like $27 to $29.99. So again, a book that will make you a little bit of money, but not going to be 100% ROI. All right. I'm just looking at 3 at a time here. All right. What do we got? Advanced Grammar sitting at about $9 plus shipping. Most of the sales in the this year have been in the $35 to $40 range. You've had some periods where it was a little bit cheaper in January and February, and then you've had periods of time before that where it was again back in the 30 and 40 range. So whether or not this will be 100% ROI really depends on if there's shipping included, which it does appear that there's shipping included. So we're not going to quite be there, but again, a book that I would strongly recommend buying. Just won't be 100% ROI. So 12.68. I'd target somewhere around like 30, probably like $37. And so you're looking at close to about a 70% ROI. And I didn't tell everyone this, but this does include a prep center fee. I pay my prep center $2.25 per book. So this, if you were doing your own prep, just add $2.25 to what the profit here is. Okay, we got a book here. Was selling in the $40 range in August, has a little bit of a January season selling in the 30s. It's currently 23, so it definitely is a little bit undervalued, but it more than likely could become cheaper. It's a book that I would want to be picking up for like right around $12 or less. So it's not at that price, so I'm going to move on. And then I did accidentally exit out of this book, so I want to see that again. Let's look at this one. This one. Okay, 1984, George Orwell. Most of these sales have been in the mid 30s, some upwards of 40. You had recent or previous sales right around 10 or so bucks. Amazon used to sell for 15. Actually, it was out of stock, so it was selling for right around 36 bucks. Last one sold, and then now it's sitting here at 15. Again, not 100% ROI book flip. I would say buy for 15, probably sell for 39. Probably looking at like a $7 to $9 profit, not 100% ROI. A Day in the Life of America's Greatest Restaurant. It's priced at 5. Most recent sales were in the 20s, some sales in the 30s. What's really intriguing to me is in January of this year, it just popped off. It went from $1 all the way up to 35. 20 used offers off the listing. We know that it's not an IP complaint because the sales rank went from 1 million down to 20,000. The only way that your sales rank gets that low is if you sell a ton of copies in a very short period of time. Similarly, that happened in August as well, where the sales rank went from 1.4 million down to 78,000. So what's interesting about this book is as of recent, in the last January, August season, it doesn't really look like to be a textbook, but it definitely has basically sold all copies. Um, and you do have people who were FBA sellers on the listing in the 30s who did sell their price or who did sell their book at those prices. So that's pretty fascinating. I don't know. Potentially this Irene Daria, maybe the author, maybe she passed away. Maybe there's a documentary run about her around January. Not really sure the reason, but it became really popular all of a sudden, kind of out of the blue. And so you'd have to do more research. If we expect that trend to happen again, then absolutely you should be buying as many copies as you can. But again, you'd have to do a little bit more research to figure that out. Great Lakes Lighthouse Encyclopedia. This is at $5 plus shipping. Has had some sales in the 30 range, has had also some sales in the $20 range. And I would say that's kind of what its intrinsic value is, between 20 and 25 bucks. So again, a book that's undervalued, but not quite 100% ROI book material. All right, let's look at the last handful of books here on BookMine Mini, and then we're going to answer some questions if there are any questions, and then we're going to go ahead and get on out of here. All right, let's see what we got. The Filmmaker's Guide to Digital Imaging. So this is sitting at 13 plus shipping, so right around 18. You've had sales in the 25 range and sales in the 30 range. So again, a book that's undervalued, not quite going to be 100% ROI. So we'll go past on that. The Last Temptation of Christ sitting at about $41. The most recent sales have been in the 50s and 60s. Again, it has been significantly cheaper than what you can pick it up for today. And so I would definitely be interested in tracking this book, especially because long term it does have a very strong intrinsic value. I would say it's worth right around that 40 to 50 bucks. So even though some of the recent sales have been a little bit higher than what I would consider that intrinsic value to be, I'd want to be picking this book up at like 18 or less. And kind of crazy, you did have this sales rank drop, which appears to have happened right around 300 bucks. More than likely, it was a collectible offer in the $80 range. That's kind of more in line with, what's realistic. But a solid book if you can pick it up for the right price. We have The Gospel. It's about $8. The most recent sales in the 30s and 25 range. Sales before that were right around like 12 to 15. In 2023, it looks like it was really strong in the mid 20s up to the high 30s. And so for whatever reason, in this stretch of October 2024 to July 2025, it's almost like a year, kind of was, bottoming out at a price or a new price point, stabilizing the $18 range. So I'd say it's probably worth around 18 to 25 bucks. It's sitting here at about $8, so it's undervalued, but again, not 100% ROI. We've got Weapon H, AWOL. Okay, so $8 plus shipping, right around 12 bucks. The most recent 3 sales appear to have been 44, 48, and 20. You've had some pretty consistent sales in the $20 range. So again, an undervalued book. You'd only have that shot at 100% ROI if you're able to kind of sell it at this higher price point, which again, it did. But I would say, again, look at it holistically and collectively. Most of the time, it's selling around the $20 range, which would indicate that's what its probably real value is. And so picking up at 12 and selling for 20 is not even profitable. So this would kind of you buying this book to flip on Amazon would rely more on, I wouldn't say luck, but like just being very patient and waiting for a period of time where maybe the used offer count gets much lower. So again, it's just that there's better books out there. I would just move on from a book like that. So again, I did want to share with everyone the way that you can get BookMine Mini if you're interested. Is you just go to bookmine.co. You just simply click on the pricing right here, and that will take you down to BookMine Mini. All you do is sign up there for free. 50 book leads every 2 hours, which is awesome. If you ever then do end up moving over to BookMine, the biggest difference between BookMine Mini and BookMine is simply just the number of books. So BookMine Mini's found you 50 books in this last 2 hour time block. BookMine has found 4,000 books. Let's see to be exact, 4,186 books in the last 30 minutes. So basically, BookMine updates 4 times as fast as BookMine Mini, and then finds about over 4,000 more books. So there's just going to be plenty of opportunities for you to look at books like high school books and college textbooks to be able to sort by that. What Victor and I wanted to do is make BookMine Mini like a training tool. Everything that you see on BookMine Mini is essentially exactly the same. All the filters all the same, the profit meter, the use price slider, etc. It's just, it's a good training playground so that if you ever do make your way over um, to BookMine, you can see, all the potential deals out there. So maybe let's look at a couple that have been here on BookMine that look pretty decent right off the bat. So we have this great grammar student textbook. Was selling in the $50 price point, an amazing book. It's currently sitting here at about $10 plus shipping. More than likely, it's going to be hard to find the book at a similar price like that throughout the year. Potentially, you could get lucky in March or April, but potentially you couldn't. I would actually say that more than likely you're not going to have the opportunity to pick this book up at a cheaper price, only because the offer count is so much lower. It's already at 25. Last year is at 50, so the offer count is half of what it was the same day last year, which indicates more than likely, unless something crazy happens and you have a massive used offer count spike, that this is going to be a book that probably not going to really have plenty of opportunity to buy this much cheaper. So pick this up for right around 12. The goal is to flip this for about 40 to 50 bucks in the season. Amazing book. You have Carson DeLosa, right? This book is selling in the 30s. Some sells in the 40s, a couple in the 50s. It just recently dropped from 20 down to $6 plus shipping. Also a seasonal book, which is great, right? I mean, you can see in July how this was a couple bucks and went all the way up into the 30s, came back down in price, back to about $5. Back in July, August, went back up again. Same thing happened again. So this is again another seasonal book. Again, it makes sense as language arts. It's actually for grade 4. So there's tons of other seasonal books that you can find on BookMine as well. But yeah, I mean, there's just tons of awesome books available for you to purchase. There's another one. There's another one. There's another one. So definitely consider checking out BookMine out as well, because there's a lot of opportunity there. So I'll probably just hang out for a minute or two. I mean, I don't see any comments, but I do see there's over 20 people here, which is awesome. So if you have any comments or questions, let me know. We can talk them through. But the moral of the story is 100% ROI book flips are very easy when you're thrifting and doing library sales because the purchase price is so cheap. When you do online book arbitrage, it becomes harder to get 100% ROI book flips. And so maybe the better thing to focus on is profit per book, because there's a lot of books that you can make $10, $20, $30 profit per book on, but they might be a 30%, 50%, 70% ROI. And my average book flip is over 100% ROI, but at the same time, I tend to focus a lot on longer tail books that have that ability to sell for a much higher ROI. And I sacrifice selling speed. So I'm more than happy to wait 6 or 9 months when a lot of people are not. So that kind of the trade-off with high ROI book flips is you generally need to wait longer for those to happen. And so the argument on the other side of that is if you pick up more books and sell them for a lower return on investment, like if you're buying 3 times as many books and getting a 50% ROI instead of 100+% ROI, you actually might net more money overall. So probably a better way to think of it is how much profit per book are you making, not necessarily what the ROI is on the book, but it's good to have as a thumbnail. 100% ROI book flips, Amazon to Amazon. It's also good to show that, even though BookMine Mini and BookMine show you great books, not all the books that you come across are going to be 100% ROI. A lot of them are going to be 30%, 50%, 70%. And if you're really wanting an inventory that's full of 100% ROI book flips, you have to do a lot more work. You're certainly going to have to comb through many more potential deals and be selective with the books that you are buying, which if you are somebody who doesn't have a ton of capital to spend, you maybe only have a few hundred bucks or a couple grand to spend, then I would actually recommend being very selective to do that. McKay says, how long would you be willing to wait for a 50% ROI book? Um, it's a good question. It depends on what I would consider like my confidence in the book. So if it's a seasonal textbook, for example, a high school textbook where I know there's probably no opportunity to pick this book up at a cheaper price point than today, and I think that I have a very high likelihood of being able to sell this profitably, then yeah, I'm willing to wait, buy it now and wait 8 months to sell it in August. And remember that a 50% ROI could be a massive profit on a book if the book is more expensive. For example, if you're buying a book for 80 and you're getting a 50% ROI on it, that means you're making $40 profit per copy, which is incredible. So, a lot of the high school textbooks, especially the AP textbooks that are much more expensive, those are books that generally don't get below 70, maybe $60. And so you're flipping those for, maybe 140, 150, 160. And so, buying at 70, flipping for 150, you're probably making like a $40 profit. And so in that case, if it's November, December, and I don't think that there's a good chance that I could pick up 10 copies of this at a lower price in the future, then I'll just pull the trigger now. Because the way that I see it is 10 copies times 40 bucks a book at 50% ROI. I mean, that's a $400 book right there. I mean, that's $400 in profit. That's an amazing return on a book. And I always think of what's my alternative, right? At this point, I've been doing it long enough. I've been doing it over a decade. I've also, a lot of people know I was a high school teacher for 7 years. Like my wife and I have the ability to make money and save money. And so as time goes on, the most important thing is how is your money working for you? Like, what's the best way to make your money work for you? Right now, what I basically do with all the money I make from Amazon, or the majority of it, is I just put it all over to the S&P 500 because to me, I see that as the longer term play where compound interest at 8% per year is just going to continue to build a massive nest egg. So for me, what's the alternative? Like, if I can buy 10 copies of a book that I will get 50% ROI on, or I think I can, $40 profit per book, for me, that's better than sticking in the S&P 500 because I don't believe I'm going to be able to get 50% on my money in the S&P 500. I mean, that would be insanely crazy. Like, that's just not even possible in the S&P 500. So it depends on the confidence of the book. So, McKay, if there is a book that is a much longer tail book, it's a book that potentially I could pick up for cheaper in the future. It's a book that I'm just like, yeah, it's an okay book. Then yeah, I just more than likely would pass on it. So um, hopefully that makes sense. It's a good question. I'm surprised nobody had any questions about the used buy box. But anyone else have any questions? Jan says thanks. You're welcome, Jan. Glad that you found that helpful. And again, anyone who joined later, you can just kind of rewind. We went through pretty much all the books on BookMine Mini and found some decent deals, some not good deals, some great deals, kind of just a mix of everything, which is going to be true with everything. You're welcome. I'm glad that you found that useful, McKay. Yeah, any other questions? Probably hang out for a couple more minutes. And yeah, if you have any comments or questions, let me know. Just trying to see if there's anything else that looks kind of crazy right now. All right. Just looking at BookMine right now, looking at the some of these seasonal books that look kind of crazy. One of the pros about being on BookMine after high school and college textbook season is you get to see all the books that performed really well. Is Basically, remember the way that BookMine works is we're looking at the current price relative to recent sales. So after the season, what you would expect to happen is, right, leading up to the season, the price went up, got really high, and then after the season's over, prices tend to fall. And so, boom, if you're on BookMine in November and December, it's actually the best time because you're going to be finding all of these books that are priced here that were just up there. And so those are great leads for the next high school college textbook season. And specifically, right now I'm looking at high school books, but if you're looking at college books only, then you're gonna find plenty of the college textbooks. Let's say for example, this one that just had these high prices that are now down there. And surprise, surprise, it's a college textbook, so it has two humps. And what's coming up is the January season. So that's the one of the really good reasons why being on BookMine is very um, kind of useful, especially after the season. Because a lot of people say, Joji, Victor, like, why wouldn't I just stop using BookMine after the season's over? Well, because after the season's over, you'll see what all the best book deals were. So, for example, this book is only 23 bucks. It was selling for between 60 to 90. And guess what's coming up there in January? Looks like another 70 to $90 selling season. So, I didn't also say, oh, this book's actually crazy. I've sold this book for years. This is an amazing book. The other thing that I forgot to say is remember to check the counterfeit calculator. BooksRun has a counterfeit calculator for all textbooks. Run the ISBN through it. If it says highly likely or likely to be counterfeit, I'd recommend just steering clear of it. Doesn't mean that if it says likely or high likely that your copy would be. I just would recommend generally not trying to mess with this. This is a book that I've been selling for years. That's crazy because I remember selling this book back in when I was going to college, when I was getting my master's in like 2017, 2018. And you can see, look, 2017, 2018. So this is literally a book that I've been selling for 7, 8 years. It's kind of crazy. Um, and look, this book is on BookMine. It was just selling for well over 90 bucks. It's undergoing a massive repricing war. It went from 67 all the way down to about 41. January's coming up. More than likely, you'll be able to sell copies for 80 to 90 bucks. So that's an amazing book right there, Classical Mechanics. So just a bunch of books like that sitting on BookMine. And yeah. How do you keep your sell-through rate so good with so many long tail books? Actually, my sell-through rate isn't actually that good, to be honest with you. It's more just having a mix of seasonal and all year round books. So again, a good majority or chunk of my inventory are those longer tail books. But one thing that I do with the longer tail books is I generally tend to price them more competitively and not try to get like the most that historically the book has sold for, because probably the easiest way to speed up the rate at which a book sells is just to price it more cheaply so that it's more enticing to somebody who wants to buy the book, right? I mean, think about it logically. Like if you want a book, if it's offered at 150 versus 90, like you're probably more enticed to buy it at 90 rather than 150, right? So one way that I kind of increase the speed is just by pricing a little bit more aggressively. And then yeah, I do have seasonal books. So I do sell quite a bit of college textbooks and high school books, which speeds up the sell-through rate. But overall, generally I have a pretty low sell-through rate relative to most people. Bookstone says high likely counterfeit on Classical Mechanics. Man, that's a bummer. Is that book? I remember selling that book back in from 2018, 2019, 2020. What kind of caught my attention was that's a book that I haven't seen in a little while. But that's a bummer that it says high likely to be counterfeit on BookMine. So in that case, you just want to skip it. It says okay, thanks. Yeah, what I would say again, going back to the sell-through rate, is a lot of people get enticed by high return on investment, which is what I tend to show in a lot of my videos. But you probably don't want to have an inventory that's all long tail books, which I don't, but I do have more long tail books than most people. And so what I mean by that is if you kind of jump into online book arbitrage and just have, you only have 200 books in inventory and they're all long tail books, like they're just not going to sell fast. Like it's going to take a long time for them to sell. So that's why I would jump in with the mentality of maybe let's do, 50% seasonal books and, 20% all year round books that I think I can flip pretty much almost immediately as soon as they get back to the warehouse. And then maybe, 20 to 30% long tail books, like be a little bit more diversified with what your inventory looks like so that you're not sitting there wondering, okay, well, I bought all these great books that Joji told me to buy, all these 100% plus ROI books, but remember, every book has a plan. Many of the books that I showed you, like, oh, the plan is to sell this in 6 months, sell in 9 months, sell in a year. Like, I think often people don't realize that even though 6 months really does go by quickly, when you're starting this out, 6 months can seem forever. Um, so I would just say diversify and have a game plan to sit down and go, okay, I can only buy 5 books a day. I'm going to try to buy one long tail book today that's amazing, looks great. I'm going to try to buy, 2 seasonal books a day. And then I'm going to try to buy 2 sort of all year round books where it doesn't really matter what time of the season it is. And I'm going to go ahead and just pick those up now and hope to sell those in the next couple months. So hopefully that helps. All right, everybody. That's pretty much all that we have going on. Coming up next Wednesday, which is next Wednesday, November 19th at 5 p.m. PST, Victor and I will be doing session 2 of the college textbook flipping masterclass. Session 1 went really well. I plan to actually post about the first 30 minutes of session 1, probably on my YouTube channel, on Joji Davenport YouTube channel. And then if you want the last 30 minutes of it, you're just gonna have to be a BookMine Mini member. So you just have to sign up for BookMine Mini. But yeah, the college textbook flipping masterclass. It's a 3-session masterclass happening again. The second session will be on the 19th of November, and the third session will be on December 3rd. And the way to be a part of the masterclass is one, either buy it outright, which you can go back to one of my previous lives. There's a link down below in the description if you want to do that. It's $297, so it's basically like $100 a class. Totally worth it in my opinion. At the same time, the whole point of the masterclass is to give more value to BookMine members. All BookMine members, paid BookMine members, get it for free. So the better way to do it is just become a BookMine member, and then you get the masterclass for free. And so in a way, you can think of like if you get a BookMine subscription, you get the masterclass for free, or you can think of it as if I get the masterclass, I get like a 1 month BookMine subscription for free. I mean, it's just us trying to add more value, and the college textbook flipping masterclasses. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be again valuable for session 2. So I think that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed today's live stream, and I will more than likely see you here again probably next week for a live stream. But I'm trying to do 1 to 2 live streams a week. Hopefully it helps, and I will see everyone later. So again, thanks everyone for being here, and I'm heading on out.